Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about people who think they're injury prone. Now, if you're someone who identifies as being injury prone or have been told by somebody else that you're injury prone, you feel like your body just can't handle training without breaking down, then this video is for you. I want to try and break this notion of being injury prone because most of the time that's actually not true. Most people see themselves as being injury prone because it becomes more of an identity, and when you make it your identity, whether it's been forced upon you by someone else telling you you're injury prone or you've just come to that conclusion about yourself, it starts to create this narrative that your body is bad or your body just can't handle training stress, when in reality it's usually just poor exposure, poor stimulus, and the inability to objectively create this consistent exposure that your body can adapt to over time. The problem with identifying yourself as being injury prone is that it lowers your confidence to actually go and train and get load into your body, and it creates fear of movement and that if you do certain things you're going to get injured doing that. The thing with labeling yourself this way is that labels tend to be permanent. So you've just pigeonholed yourself into this box where you're going to be stuck there for the rest of your training days. Whereas the thing about training load is that it's changeable. You can adjust it. You don't have to be set in a specific training load, and you can slowly expose your body to more of it over time. So if you can change that narrative or that label on yourself from being injury prone or having a bad body to something that is adaptable and literally just needs to be exposed to an appropriate amount of training volume and loading, then we can start to change that injury prone label. And just like I've spoken about in every other video I've made so far, recurring injuries are literally just a mismatch in training load and recovery. And what I mean by this is that if your body can tolerate this much and you're doing this much work, eventually something is going to flare up, and that's when you start to identify as this injury prone person, when literally you've just crossed that line of tolerance. And if you could find yourself coming back underneath it, you're probably going to find a level of training volume that's appropriate for you and something you can build on over time and improve on as your tolerance increases, rather than just crossing it all the time. And generally speaking, you're not weak, you don't have body issues, and it's not bad genetics. It's literally just a training tolerance mismatch. The really cool thing about tolerance is that it's something that you're in control of, okay? Tolerance is something that can go up and down over time. So if you rest too much, it's gonna drop. If you train too hard, then you're gonna force yourself to rest because you get these recurring issues and it's gonna drop. But if you gradually expose yourself to appropriate amounts over time, you're gonna see it slowly come up and you'll be able to handle more work. So what are the things that can influence training load tolerance? Things like training history, sleep, stress, nutrition, and exposing yourself to a consistent training stimulus. If you're someone who identifies as being fragile or injury prone, why are we getting to this point? So people who consider themselves to be this generally are people who training consistently, so they're having these what we call boom bust cycles where you train really hard, you get hurt, you rest, and then you just repeat that cycle over and over again. The second thing is when you're coming back from training and you just go back to your previous training volume way too quickly. And then the third thing that could be a big issue here for people is sudden spikes in training volume. So if you're someone who tends to drift along consistently in training at a specific level of volume or intensity, and then suddenly you just shoot up here for whatever reason, maybe you've had an event come up or someone's challenged you to this fitness challenge, then this big spike in training volume goes up and then you get yourself hurt and you just think your body's fragile or injury prone, when in reality all you've done is overshoot that tolerance by quite a bit. So your body hasn't failed you, you've simply just outpaced your body's ability to adapt. What do we need to do to overcome these hurdles of thinking that we're injury prone or that we're fragile? If you're someone who thinks you're injury prone, you need to start changing the way you think about things. That is the number one key here. So instead of thinking that you're injury prone, just think that your tolerance hasn't caught up to your training volume just yet. And what you need to do is start pulling back the training a little bit so that it can meet where your body is at. So think, I need to rebuild tolerance and I'm just not quite where I need to be yet, but I'm going to get there. The cool thing about thinking this way is it's going to shift your training from being in a state of fear and anxiety of when am I going to get hurt next, to simply just looking at it from a more strategic standpoint and feeling like you have control over the outcome, because you can objectively look at your training and say, all right, I'm doing this much at the moment. Am I getting what I need out of it? Am I getting hurt? And then I need to just adjust based off feedback that my body's giving me. So it's taking you from a place of helplessness to a place of control. And yes, sometimes people get injured and they need medical management, but that's not the kind of person I'm trying to point this video towards. So you need to make sure that if you are having like really big flare-ups in pain or dysfunction, you need to get that checked out by someone who can give you appropriate advice and appropriate direction on where to take that. So what are some practical takeaways here? Stop asking yourself, why am I so injury prone and why am I so fragile? That is the number one thing you need to stop doing. You need to start asking yourself, what is my current training tolerance? Have I spiked my training volume too quickly, and is it at an appropriate level? Have I changed anything drastically recently that could be causing me to have these recurring issues? Remember, tolerance is something that is adaptable and changes over time. Tolerance can be rebuilt and your body can adapt. You're not fragile, you're just ahead of where your current levels of capacity are at. And if you can slowly rebuild yourself to where you need your capacity to be, your recurring issues will probably stop becoming an issue for you.